So welcome to this week's Optimum Health Clinic Facebook Live. And this week I wanted to talk about something which probably sounds a little bit strange in the description. So basically, for your body to heal, you have to be in it, which obviously sounds a bit strange because when I talk about being in your body, how can you not be in your body? So obviously I'm talking more kind of energetically and kind of experientially here, as opposed to obviously literally being inside your body. This is something that came out from, I just recently taken on a few new patients for the first time in a long time. And which just reminds me how much I love doing this work. And it's a great privilege to work and support with people. But this kind of came out of some of the sessions that I was doing today. And what I sometimes find is you get a kind of consistent theme that run through kind of different pockets of people that you're working with, especially when there are similar stages of recovery, or indeed there are just similar kinds of patterns or issues that are going on. And so what I wanted to talk about is this idea that for our body to heal, we have to be in it. And to kind of give context of what I mean, how can you not be in your body? Well, we're not in our body when we're heavily in our mind, where we're overstimulated, we're relating to the world through thinking, through anxiety, through planning, through mental activity. One of the things that happens when we have a significant amount of trauma, or even just when we have an ongoing, very difficult emotional life experience, otherwise known as a chronic illness, is we try to avoid feeling the emotions and the feelings of what that feels like on a daily basis. The problem is when we disassociate from our body, we go into our mind and we go into disconnection, is several things happen. One of which is, to be able to sustain that, we have to overstimulate our nervous system. So to kind of lift up and get away from what we're feeling and our emotions, we have to be overstimulated, which is a trigger to the maladaptive stress response. The other thing is that when we're not in our body, we're not feeling the feedback and the information that our body is passing to us and giving us. And if we're not receiving that information, we also can't respond to that. And so if our body is telling us to rest, we're often not so in the loop with that. Or if we're having an emotional reaction to a particular person or a particular situation, then we tend not to be attuned to that. We tend to just ignore it and push through it. There's also something very specific that happens when we have very deep rest in our body. So one of the patterns and this is part of what I was thinking about quite a lot today, is we talk about the 3 stages of recovery. But one of the things that can happen is people never actually fully go into stage 1. So stage 1 being the crash stage, stage 2 being the tired and wired stage, and stage 3 being the reintegration stage. That if we've always been in a state of overstimulation and being wired in our nervous system, we've never fully surrendered to and relaxed in to the actual underlying exhaustion that's there. And if we don't relax into it, we don't get the depth of rest and healing that needs to happen. It's like we feel a bit numb, we feel a bit tired, we feel overstimulated, and we're perhaps doing lots of things to settle and calm our system and to rest. But the depth of rest and healing is not able to happen in the same way. And a way to think about this as well, and kind of a helpful metaphor, is if you have a bar of soap in the bath and you pull it under the surface, if you then let go of that bar of soap, it will naturally float up. And as I've said before in different places, the body has its own natural healing capacity. And the question isn't only what's caused us to get sick in the first place. The question is also what is stopping us from healing. Now, obviously there are many factors on a physiological level, on an environmental level, that impact this. And so I'm particularly focusing on the psycho-emotional element here, but that's not to negate the importance of the other areas. It's just that's the lens through which I'm looking at it right now. So what's stopping us from healing, what's inhibiting that bar of soap from naturally floating up, can be the fact that we're not fully inhabiting our body. Instead, we're up in our heads, we're caught in our nervous system, we're overstimulated. When we go to rest, it's like our system's tight and we're kind of resting, but there's not that depth of healing that happens. And so often an important question for people is, how do we facilitate and support that deepening of healing in our body? And I was thinking, one way to think about this is it's not the only piece of this jigsaw, but one way to think about it is to support and allow that in happening. Effectively, what it is an acceptance of what's happening, because the fighting of where we are is built upon the idea that we believe that we will only get better if we solve the puzzle, we figure out how to get out, and we do all the right things, and we strive and we push and we pull ourselves out of the situation that we're in. And there's sometimes some truth in that. And again, it's not an either or, it's an and situation. Often we need to be doing those things. And if there's not a depth of surrender and a depth of acceptance, everything that we're doing, even when we're doing our meditation practice, like we're doing it from a place of tightness. It's like we're meditating because we're trying to get our system to calm and relax. Or we're going and having a nap or having a rest period, but we're resting because we're trying to get our body to calm and to settle. And it's like, it's a subtle difference. I'm not talking about stopping doing those things, but it's almost like the analogy I was using with a few people today, that it's like swinging a golf club. And if we're a seasoned golfer and we know our swing, and sometimes a very subtle difference in the grip, just loosening the grip a fraction on that golf club, means the backswing is a little bit looser, which potentially means we get a bit more power on the downswing, and perhaps also means we get a touch more accuracy in the angle of the head of the golf club when it strikes the ball, which then means it goes straighter. So that subtle loosening and shift of the grip has a huge impact on the outcome of the whole thing. And that can be the case with all the things that we're doing to support our recovery process. We get a subtle shift in the grip of the way that we're holding it, the expectations, the outcome, the trying to get it right, the thinking, if I don't do this, I won't recover, and all that pressure, that subtle shift. And it's like loosening of that achiever, that slight more acceptance, and that allows our system to settle. And when our system settles, we're more able to relax into our body. We're more relaxed into our body. When we rest, we get a deeper quality of rest. We can look at this from the point of view of brain waves, like the calmer or the less beta we have in the daytime tends to be the more alpha, which is more of the resting state for the brain. Means less theta, which is dreaming sleep at night, which tends to be tiring to the nervous system, and we get more delta deep sleep. There's lots of lenses through which we could look at this. So one of the questions is and I'm mindful of trying to keep these sessions to 10 minutes, and this one's probably going to be probably 15 minutes or so, but hopefully you can always watch in 2 parts. So one of the questions is, what does it feel like to be in your body? So one of the things that's fascinating is when we're in our body and we're fighting our body, then every symptom kind of irritates us, and everything that kind of doesn't go our way we feel frustrated about, and there's like this tension, it feels toxic. If we're fully surrendered to what's happening and we're fully inhabiting our body, we can be in physical pain and we can have a different relationship to that pain. It's like, there's lots of research psychologically about what's called the pain loop, about how we have pain and the reaction to the pain can change whether the pain is more painful or less painful, or the quality of the pain changes. So it might still be as intense, but it's less of a stabbing pain and more of a numb pain, of a kind of throbbing pain, for example. And that's true in lots of other ways in terms of how we soften in terms of our relationship to what is happening. So when we're more fully in our body, it's like something feels more relaxed. We're less fighting what's happening, and all the same symptoms might be there, but there's less reactivity to those symptoms. And so this kind of brings in another question here. And this is a big question. For some people, it kind of, it's many, it's several sessions or many sessions of kind of work to fully understand it. But I wanted to give a few pointers about what can support us of getting more deeply into our body. And I think firstly, it's having the awareness that we're resisting and we're fighting and we're not in our body. When we have that awareness, things like meditation can be very helpful. If we're very much in our mind, very much overstimulated, sometimes when we sit and meditate, we become even more aware of all of that noise, and then we get more noise about the noise. And so it can take quite a bit of practice to shift that. And if possible, and this is obviously dependent upon someone's stage of recovery and what they're able to do, but if possible, doing some kind of very gentle yoga can help if there's movement, or going for a very slow, gentle walk, again, if that's possible, and almost doing a meditative practice whilst moving the body can be an easier way of relaxing and settling into it. It's like we can't think our way out of thinking, but sometimes we can move our way out of thinking, or we can breathe our way out of thinking, because we give a different orientation, a different focus for where we put our attention. And rather than our attention going on thoughts and thoughts about thoughts, our attention goes on our breath, or goes on the movement, or whatever else it is that we're doing. Another piece which often can be important is understanding what it is in our body that we're not wanting to feel. So some of us have history around either what we call big T trauma, like significant life traumas like physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, or we've gone through in our adult, it could be an adult life or our childhood, something around we've been through a heavy divorce that's been very difficult, or a financial situation that's very difficult. So kind of a more obvious trauma, we've been in a war zone or whatever, or what we call a small T trauma, like developmental trauma, like we just didn't have the level of emotional holding and nourishment that we needed as a child, and so we never really felt safe in the world. These different, again, I could do a number of, maybe it'd be worth doing a Facebook Live or two around trauma, and it's a whole other subject. But if there are things in our body that that it doesn't feel safe to feel, or doesn't feel comfortable to feel, that's another reason why we go into our mind and we get out of our feelings and our emotions as a way of avoiding that. And so understanding what it is that's in our body that we're trying to get away from. Sometimes it's a case of just building awareness around the different ways that we abandon our feelings. So almost like I have an exercise that I do with people around situation, feeling, and response. So what was the situation, what did you feel, and how did you respond to the feeling? Like how did you reject and not honour the feeling, or listen to the feeling that was there? And there's a kind of way of obviously working with that. So just kind of recap, identifying, recognizing we're not in our body, identifying that, doing things like meditation, yoga to allow ourselves to come more into our body, and working with the emotions and any trauma that we're trying to stay safe from and avoid by not being in our body. So I think a lot of that can be very useful. And they're all big subjects. They're all things that we could go off into in other times. But I wanted just to give a kind of wider orientation around this as an issue. The benefit of doing this. So just to kind of start to summarize it, the benefit of doing this is if we can be more in our body. That means that when we rest, we get deeper rest. It means that we can listen to our emotions, and we can listen to to our symptoms in a way that we tend not to push through and relapse, and we can be more aware of our emotional needs when we're in contact with other people. So we don't have to abandon our feelings and our emotions when we're in contact with others. And as I say, there's a sometimes very subtle but very significant difference of when our nervous system is at rest and at peace. It's like it's the ultimate antidote to the maladaptive stress response, that when our nervous system is fully at rest and at peace, the body's natural healing process is then unlocked and able to happen. So in terms of just making this kind of summarizing it, making it more practical, see if you can just explore, like, where are you where do you live? Like, do you live up here? Sometimes we live almost out of our body. We always have a depersonalization where we're not even really in our body. Do you live kind of between the two, like kind of in your body then going into your head? Or are you more grounded in your body? So if you want to post any questions, feel free. One thing also just to say is that you guys are probably aware that we recently launched our fundraising, our Sofa Heroes fundraising campaign, which is raising money for the treatment stage of our randomized controlled trial. You can find out more about it at theoptimalhealthclinic.com/fundraising. But specifically, I wanted to mention that Helen Lynham, our Director of Nutrition, has just launched a fundraising thing that she's doing. She, like a number of the practitioners at the clinic, works a lot from home. As you're probably aware, we do a lot of work by telephone and video Skype. On Wednesdays, I work from home, so this is my home office as opposed to my office. And one of the dangers of working from home is you can end up spending the whole day in front of your computer and not getting the level of exercise and kind of steps, which are obviously good and healthy for the body. So she is going to walk to work every day for a month. Now, obviously, when you work at home, walking to work means literally walking from one room to the other. So she's going to go for a walk every morning. So I think the idea is she's going to walk 30 minutes every morning for a month. She doesn't have, obviously, any chronic fatigue. But one of the reasons why she picked this as a thing to do, which I thought was really, really cool, was this kind of finding something which is within your capacity and being consistent about it is the same kind of discipline and challenge that often patients have to work with. Now, for them, it might be walking 3 minutes a day or remembering to take supplements every day or doing 10 minutes of meditation a day, whatever it may be. But it's that consistency and not obviously pushing through and ignoring your body, but within listening to your body, that consistency of doing something. So she thought that would be a good way of modeling and capturing some of that. So I'll post a link under the video to that. You can follow what she's doing on her Just Giving page. And if you'd like to donate to support the research that we're doing, that would be a great way of doing so. So thank you for watching. If you want to post questions underneath, I will jump on later tonight or tomorrow. I hope that's been useful. Let me know if that was useful. And also feel free to mention topics that you'd like us to cover in the future. We've got a plan that over the summer, especially when I've got holidays and such things, that some of the other team will come and do some Facebook Lives, and that'll be a nice way of, like was when I said I'd go have a holiday. That's very nice. I do take a holiday sometimes. It'd also be nice to have some of the nutrition team, also just get some different voices from the clinic, but also we can get some more nutrition-oriented Facebook Lives as well, because obviously when you get me, you get the overview stuff and you get the psychology stuff, but it would be nice to get some variety as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and I look forward to talking with you again next week. Bye-bye for now.